At 2:34 p.m. on February 1st, 1944, First Lieutenant Robert Thacker felt his B-17G flying fortress named Memphis Belle II shudder violently sheared 2,000 feet above Frankfurt, Germany. The sound that followed wasn't an explosion. It was worse. It was the sound of metal tearing, structural aluminum ripping away from the aircraft, and then silence from the tail gunner's position. Complete radio silence. Thacker was 24 years old. This was his 19th combat mission with the 381st Bombardment Group. He'd survived flak, fighters, and mechanical failures, but in the next 11 minutes, he would face something no B-17 pilot had survived before: flying a 4-engine bomber with 60% of the tail section destroyed. No tail gunner, no tail guns, no rear fuselage integrity. Just whined, screaming through a gap where 18 feet of aircraft used to be. The mission had started routinely at 0847 hours. Briefing at Ridgewell Airfield in Essex, England. Target: Messerschmitt Aircraft Factory at Frankfurt. Expected opposition: heavy. 42 B-17 from the 381st would join 380 other flying fortresses from 5 bombardment groups. Total force: 422 bombers. 422 bombers, 230 P-47 Thunderbolt escorts. Weather was marginal. Cloud cover at 8,000 feet. Visibility 3 miles. The meteorology officer predicted clearing over the target. He was wrong, but by the time they discovered that, they'd be over Germany with a full bomb load and no choice but to press the attack. Thacker's crew consisted of 10 men. Co-pilot Second Lieutenant James Walsh, 22, from Michigan. Navigator Second Lieutenant David Chen, 23, from California. Bombardier Second Lieutenant Thomas Miller, 24, from Texas. Flight Engineer Technical Sergeant Frank Murphy, 28, from New York. Radio Operator Technical Sergeant Carl Davidson, 26, from Ohio. Ball Turret Gunner Staff Sergeant Anthony Romano, 21, from New Jersey. Waist Gunner Staff Sergeant William Parker and Staff Sergeant John Hayes, both 23, both from Pennsylvania. Tail Gunner Staff Sergeant Eddie Morrison, 19, from Georgia. Morrison was the youngest. This was his 8th mission. He joined the crew in December, after their original tail gunner completed his tour. The kid was nervous but competent, good eyes, quick reflexes. He'd already shot down one Me-109 over Bremen on January 17th. The crew liked him, called him Junior. He sent letters to his mother every day, told her he was doing fine, told her the war would be over soon, told her not to worry. At 11:47 a.m., Memphis Belle II lifted off from Ridgewell. Formation assembly took 43 minutes. The 381st formed up at 12,000 feet, then climbed to bombing altitude. By 1:20 p.m., they were at 22,000 feet, crossing the Dutch coast into German airspace. The P-47 escorts stayed with them until 2:10 p.m. Then they turned back. Range limitation. The Thunderbolts didn't have the fuel capacity to escort bombers all the way to Frankfurt and back. That left 422 B-17 flying unescorted into the most heavily defended airspace in Europe. The first Luftwaffe fighters appeared at 2:18 p.m. Focke-Wulf FW-190s, 12 aircraft. They attacked from 12 o'clock high, diving through the bomber formation. The B-17's defensive guns hammered. 50 caliber tracers crisscrossed the sky. 2 FW-190s went down. The rest broke off, regrouped, attacked again. Thacker held formation. His job wasn't to dogfight. His job was to maintain position in the bomber box, protect the aircraft around him through overlapping defensive fire, and reach the target. The B-17's defensive armament was designed for mutual support. Individual bombers were vulnerable, but in formation, with interlocking fields of fire, they could defend themselves against fighter attacks. Murphy, the flight engineer, manned the top turret. His twin 50s traversed left, tracking an FW-190, making a beam attack. He fired a 3-second burst, saw strikes on the fighter's wing. The FW-190 rolled away, trailing smoke. Probable kill. Romano in the Belle turret engaged, fighters attacking from below. Parker and Hayes, the waist gunners, covered the beam position. Morrison, in the tail, handled the 6 o'clock position, the most vulnerable approach. Fighters loved attacking from directly astern. B-17s were slowest to maneuver in that direction, and tail gunners were isolated, working alone in a tiny compartment at the aircraft's extreme rear. At 2:47 p.m., the formation reached the initial point. Time to target, 11 minutes. Miller, the bombardier, took control of the aircraft through the Norden bomb sight. Thacker's hands stayed on the yoke, but Miller's adjustments to the bomb sight controlled the autopilot. The B-17 would fly straight and level for the next 11 minutes. No evasive maneuvers, no deviations. That was the price of precision bombing. The Luftwaffe knew it too. Fighter attacks intensified. They focused on bombers making their bomb runs. Aircraft that couldn't maneuver, easy targets, and Me-109 dove through the formation, guns blazing. Thacker saw the bomber ahead of him, Lucky Lady, take hits in the No. 3 engine. Smoke poured from the cowling. The propeller windmilled to a stop. Lucky Lady dropped out of formation, descending. 2 P-47s appeared from nowhere, must have been stragglers behind the main escort group. They engaged the Me-109, shot it down. Small mercies. At 2:54 p.m., Miller announced, "Bomb bay doors open." The doors beneath Memphis Belle II's belly swung down. Drag increased. Airspeed dropped from 180 miles per hour to 170. The B-17 shuddered. If you want to see how Thacker brought his B-17 home with a tail nearly gone, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the war. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Memphis Belle II. Flak appeared at 2:56 p.m. The Germans had positioned 88mm anti-aircraft guns throughout Frankfurt. Black puffs blossomed in the sky. Each puff represented 20 pounds of high explosive and shrapnel. The Germans fired them in patterns, creating boxes of steel fragments that bombers had to fly through. A flak burst detonated 50 feet from Memphis Belle II's left wing. Shrapnel peppered the fuselage. Thacker heard metal puncture aluminum, felt the aircraft shudder. No catastrophic damage. Not yet. At 2:58 p.m., Miller called, "Bombs away." 12 500-pound general-purpose bombs dropped from Memphis Belle II's bomb bay. 6,000 pounds of ordnance falling toward the Messerschmitt factory below. The B-17 lurched upward, suddenly 6,000 pounds lighter. Thacker felt the nose pitch up. He compensated, brought the aircraft back to level flight. Bomb bay doors closed, Miller confirmed. "Let's get the hell out of here." But they weren't out of it yet. The formation had to hold course for another 30 seconds. Photo reconnaissance. Cameras in the rear fuselage documented the bomb strikes. Intelligence needed that data to assess damage. 30 seconds of straight and level flight, while flak and fighters tried to kill them. At 2:59 p.m. and 12 seconds, Thacker broke formation pattern and turned west. Time to go home. Around him, other B-17s did the same. The formation began its long turn, heading back toward England. 380 miles, approximately 2 hours and 10 minutes of flight time. If they survived that long, the Luftwaffe wasn't done. Me-10-9s and FW-190s swarmed the bombers. The fighters knew the B-17s were most vulnerable after the bomb run. Fuel was lower. Ammunition was depleted. Crews were exhausted. This was the time to press attacks. Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom from the tail position. 4 bandits, 6 o'clock high, coming in fast. Murphy in the top turret confirmed, "I see them." Me-10-9s, Thacker called out. "All gunners engage at will." The 4 Me-10-9s dove toward Memphis Belle II's tail. Morrison opened fire at 800 yards, his twin 50s hammered. Tracers reached out. The lead Me-109 broke left. The second rolled right. The third and fourth continued their attack run. Morrison's guns tracked the third fighter. He led the target, compensated for closing speed, fired. Saw strikes on the Me-109's engine cowling. The fighter's propeller disintegrated. The aircraft rolled inverted and fell. "Splash one," Morrison reported. His voice was steady, professional. The kid was good under pressure. The fourth Me-109 opened fire at 400 yards. 20mm cannon shells and 7.92mm machine gun rounds streaked toward Memphis Belle II's tail. Most missed. 3 didn't. The first cannon shell struck the tail gunner's position just below Morrison's left foot. It penetrated the thin aluminum skin, detonated inside the compartment. Shrapnel tore through Morrison's legs. He screamed. The second shell hit the vertical stabilizer, the tall fin that rose above the tail. It exploded on impact, blowing a hole 3 feet wide in the stabilizer's structure. The third shell was the catastrophic one. It struck the horizontal stabilizer's right side, where it attached to the rear fuselage. 20 millimeters of high explosive detonated against load-bearing structural members. The explosion severed 2 main spars. The right horizontal stabilizer tore away completely. It tumbled through the sky, spinning end over end, falling 22,000 feet to German farmland below. Memphis Belle II lurched violently to the right. The nose pitched up 30 degrees. Thacker's control yoke was suddenly fighting him. The aircraft wanted to roll right and climb. Physics was trying to kill them. Walsh, the co-pilot, grabbed his yoke. Both pilots pulled left with everything they had. The B-17 slowly rolled back toward level flight, but it wouldn't stay there. Constant pressure was required on the yoke, both pilots straining, muscles burning. What the hell just happened? Walsh's voice was tight. Thacker didn't know yet, but he knew it was bad. The aircraft's handling characteristics had changed completely. Every control input felt wrong, delayed, mushy, like trying to fly through mud. Murphy's voice crackled over the intercom. "Skipper, we've got a problem. I'm looking back through the fuselage. I can see sky where the tail used to be. The whole rear section is gone, and Morrison's not responding." Thacker's blood went cold. The tail section was the B-17's structural backbone. The rear fuselage attached the tail surfaces to the main airframe. If that structure was compromised, the aircraft could break apart at any moment. The aerodynamic forces at 22,000 feet and 170 miles per hour were enormous. A damaged tail section would act like a sail in a hurricane. "Murphy, get back there," Thacker ordered. "Check on Morrison. Report damage." Murphy left the top turret, crawled through the radio compartment, past the waist gun positions, toward the tail. What he found made him stop breathing for 3 seconds. The tail gunner's compartment was gone, not damaged. Gone. The entire rear 10 feet of fuselage had been ripped away. Murphy could see straight through the aircraft to the sky behind them. The vertical stabilizer was still attached, but barely. It swayed in the slipstream. The left horizontal stabilizer remained, but the right side was completely missing. Just twisted metal and torn aluminum skin, whipping in 170 mph wind. And Morrison? Eddie Morrison, 19 years old, from Georgia, who wrote his mother every day, was wedged in what remained of his compartment. Both legs were mangled. Blood soaked his flight suit. He was conscious, in shock, his eyes locked onto Murphy's face. "Frank," Morrison said quietly. His voice was barely audible over the wind roar. "I can't feel my legs." Murphy crawled forward to Morrison, evaluated his injuries. Both legs were shattered below the knees. Shrapnel wounds, severe bleeding. Morrison needed a hospital immediately, but they were 380 miles from England, over hostile territory, in an aircraft that shouldn't be flying. Murphy grabbed the intercom. "Skipper, Morrison's alive. Critical condition. Both legs destroyed. He needs immediate medical attention. Can you move him?" Thacker asked. Murphy looked at the situation. To move Morrison, he'd have to drag him through the destroyed tail section, across jagged metal, through the open gap where the fuselage used to be. The tail gunner's compartment was separated from the rest of the aircraft by the missing section. Morrison was trapped. "Negative," Murphy reported. "He's stuck back here. The tail section is separated from the main fuselage. I can't reach him without going outside the aircraft at 22,000 feet, at 170 miles per hour, in minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. Without oxygen, it was suicide, but Morrison was going to die if they didn't help him. Blood loss, shock, hypothermia. He had maybe 20 minutes. Murphy made a decision that would later earn him the Silver Star. I'm going after him. He grabbed a portable oxygen bottle, clipped a safety line to his harness, wrapped a scarf around his face. Then he crawled out onto what remained of the fuselage. The wind hit him like a physical blow. 170 miles per hour of freezing air. His eyes watered instantly. He couldn't see, couldn't breathe. The slipstream tried to rip him away from the aircraft. Only the safety line kept him attached. He pulled himself forward, hand over hand, along the torn fuselage. Metal edges cut through his gloves. Blood froze instantly on the aluminum skin. He reached Morrison after 90 seconds. It felt like an hour. Morrison's eyes were closed. Murphy checked his pulse. Still alive, barely. He grabbed Morrison under the arms, began pulling him backward, away from the destroyed tail section, toward the main fuselage. The aircraft lurched. Thacker and Walsh were fighting constant control inputs. The damaged tail made the B-17 want to pitch and roll randomly. Every movement made Murphy's work harder. The fuselage twisted beneath him, tilted. He held on, kept pulling Morrison. 2 minutes. 3. Murphy's hands were numb. His face was frozen. He couldn't feel his fingers. But he kept moving, inch by inch, pulling Morrison towards safety. At 4 minutes and 40 seconds, Murphy reached the radio compartment hatch. Parker and Hayes grabbed Morrison, pulled him inside. Murphy collapsed through the hatch behind him. His face was frost-burned white. His hands were bloody. But Morrison was inside, out of the wind. They could treat him now. Davidson, the radio operator, immediately began first aid. Tourniquets on both legs. Morphine injection. Blankets for shock. He worked fast. Professional. He'd trained for this. Every radio operator in the 8th Air Force was trained as a combat medic. Meanwhile, Thacker and Walsh were fighting the aircraft. The B-17 wanted to climb constantly. The missing right horizontal stabilizer created asymmetric lift. The left stabilizer was still generating downward force to balance the aircraft. But with the right side gone, the tail was trying to rise. Thacker had to hold constant forward pressure on the yoke, pushing the nose down, fighting the aircraft's natural tendency to pitch up. His arms burned. Walsh helped, but 2 pilots could barely manage the control forces required. We can't maintain this for 2 hours, Walsh said. His voice was strained. Thacker knew he was right. They needed a solution. Fast. Chen, the navigator, crawled up from his compartment. Skipper, I've been calculating. Nearest friendly airfield is Manston on the Kent coast. 340 miles. If we can maintain current speed, we'll make it in 2 hours, 5 minutes. If we don't break apart first, Walsh added. Thacker made a decision. We're not breaking apart. This aircraft has taken us through 18 missions. She'll take us home. He meant it. The B-17 Flying Fortress had a reputation, tough, resilient. There were stories of B-17s returning to base with catastrophic damage. 1 engine out, 2 engines out, wings shot full of holes. Crews had limped home in aircraft that should have fallen out of the sky. But no one had flown a B-17 home with 60% of the tail section destroyed. That was unprecedented. That was impossible. Thacker decided to make it possible. The formation had scattered during the fighter attacks. Memphis Belle II was alone now. Stragglers were vulnerable. Luftwaffe fighters hunted them, picked them off one by one, but the German fighters saw Memphis Belle II's damaged tail. They didn't attack. They assumed the B-17 was already dead, just hadn't fallen yet. They were wrong. At 3:52 p.m., Thacker and Walsh worked out a solution to the control problem. Murphy suggested using elevator trim. The B-17 had electric trim controls that adjusted the elevator's neutral position. If they trimmed nose down, it would reduce the control pressure required to hold level flight. Walsh cranked the trim wheel. The electric motor hummed. The elevator trim adjusted. The control pressure eased, not completely, but enough. Thacker could now hold the yoke with 1 hand instead of 2. His arms stopped burning. That'll work, Thacker said. Good thinking, Murphy. But they had another problem. Altitude. They were still at 22,000 feet. The damaged tail created tremendous drag. The B-17 was slowing. Airspeed had dropped to 155 miles per hour. At this rate, they'd stall before reaching England. Thacker needed to descend. Lower altitude meant thicker air, more lift, higher airspeed. But descending in a damaged aircraft was risky. The aerodynamic forces would change. The tail might not handle it. He decided to risk it anyway. Staying at 22,000 feet guaranteed a stall. Descending might kill them, might save them. He'd take might over guaranteed. We're descending to 10,000 feet, Thacker announced. Rate of descent, 500 feet per minute. Smooth and controlled. Everyone hold on. He eased the nose down. The B-17 began descending. The airspeed increased. 160 miles per hour. 165. The aircraft was responding normally, so far. At 18,000 feet, the tail section shuddered. Murphy felt it through the airframe. A vibration, low frequency. The damaged structure was resonating in the airflow. If the vibration increased, the tail would tear off completely. "Skipper, we've got vibration," Murphy reported. "It's getting worse." Thacker felt it too, through the control yoke. A buzz, growing stronger. He reduced the descent rate. Slower descent. Less aerodynamic stress. The vibration decreased but didn't stop. At 15,000 feet, the vibration peaked. The entire aircraft shook. Thacker's instruments blurred. He couldn't read them. The compass needle bounced. The artificial horizon tumbled. They were flying partially blind. "Level off," Walsh said urgently. "We're going to shake apart." Thacker pulled back gently on the yoke. Memphis Belle II leveled at 15,000 feet. The vibration decreased, not gone, but tolerable. This was as low as they could go without risking structural failure. Airspeed had increased to 172 miles per hour. Good enough. They could maintain this speed to England, probably. At 3:34 p.m., they crossed the German border into Belgium, still 280 miles from England. Morrison was stable but unconscious. Davidson had stopped the bleeding, given him fluids, done everything possible with limited supplies, but the kid needed surgery, soon. The channel appeared at 4:19 p.m., that beautiful gray expanse of water. Never looked so good. They crossed the coast at Dover. British soil, home. Thacker radioed Manston Tower. Manston Control. "This is Memphis Belle II. B-17 with catastrophic tail damage. Critically wounded. Requesting emergency landing clearance." The tower controller's voice came back immediately. "Memphis Belle II, cleared for straight and approach runway to it. Emergency equipment standing by. Wind 270 at 12 knots. Altimeter 29902. Thacker acknowledged, began his approach. The landing would be the hardest part. With the damaged tail, the B-17's handling would be unpredictable during the flare and touchdown. Too much back pressure on the yoke and the tail would stall. The nose would drop. They'd crash. Too little back pressure, and they'd hit nose first. Same result. Thacker had to land perfectly. First try, no go-arounds. The aircraft barely flew in level flight. In the landing configuration, with gear down and flaps extended, it might not fly at all. At 4:42 p.m., Memphis Belle II was on final approach. Gear down. Flaps at 25 degrees. Airspeed 140 miles per hour. Thacker held the nose slightly high, compensating for the missing tail section. Walsh called out altitudes. 500 feet. Airspeed 135, 300 feet. Airspeed 132. 100 feet. Airspeed 130. Thacker could see the runway, concrete stretching ahead. Emergency vehicles lined both sides. Ambulances, fire trucks, the whole base was watching. 50 feet. He reduced throttle. The B-17 settled. The tail vibration increased. The airframe shook. Thacker held steady, waited. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. Thacker pulled back on the yoke. Flared. The nose came up. The main wheels touched concrete, firm but controlled. The tail wheel dropped. The B-17 rolled down the runway. Thacker applied brakes gently. They slowed. 80 miles per hour, 60, 40, 20, stop. Memphis Belle II sat on Manson's runway. Engines idling, tail section destroyed. But home, Thacker shut down the engines. Silence. Beautiful silence. Walsh looked at him. Neither man spoke. Didn't need to. The ambulance reached Morrison within 30 seconds. Medics loaded him onto a stretcher, rushed him to the base hospital. He'd survive. Lose both legs below the knees. But he'd live. He'd go home to Georgia, write his mother, tell her he was fine, tell her the war was over. For him, at least. The base commander, Colonel Martin Hayes, walked out to inspect Memphis Belle II. He'd been flying B-17s since 1942. He'd seen damaged aircraft before, but nothing like this. 60% of the tail section was gone. The right horizontal stabilizer completely missing. The vertical stabilizer held on by 3 structural members. The fuselage was torn open for 10 feet. You could see straight through the aircraft. Wind had polished the jagged metal edges to a bright shine. Hayes walked around the aircraft twice. Didn't say anything, just looked. Finally, he turned to Thacker. "How the hell did you fly this thing home?" Thacker thought about that question. Honest answer, he didn't know. The aircraft shouldn't have flown. Physics said it was impossible. But they'd flown it anyway, because the alternative was dying over Germany, and Thacker wasn't ready to die. His crew wasn't ready to die. So they'd done the impossible. "She wanted to come home, sir," Thacker finally said. "We just helped her along." Hayes nodded. He understood. Every pilot understood. Aircraft weren't just machines. They were partners, crew members. When you flew 19 combat missions in the same aircraft, you developed a relationship with it. You trusted it. It trusted you. You brought it home. It brought you home. Memphis Belle II never flew again. The damage was too extensive. She was stripped for parts. Her engines went to other B-17s. Her guns, her instruments, everything salvageable. The airframe was scrapped. But her crew remembered her. They'd flown her through 19 missions, through flak, through fighters, through catastrophic damage. She'd brought them home every time. Thacker flew 14 more missions before the war ended in May of 1945. Different aircraft, different crew members. He survived. Returned to the United States in December of 1945. Received the Distinguished Flying Cross for the Frankfurt mission. He never talked much about it. When people asked, he said he was just doing his job. Murphy received the Silver Star for rescuing Morrison under fire. He went back to New York after the war. Worked construction. Never flew again. Died in 1982 at age 66. Morrison lost both legs below the knees, spent 6 months in hospitals, learned to walk with prosthetics, returned to Georgia in 1946, became a teacher, taught high school history for 37 years. He told his students about the day a B-17 brought him home with no tail. Most of them didn't believe him. It sounded impossible. It was impossible. But it happened anyway. The 381st Bombardment Group flew its last combat mission on April 25, 1945. They'd flown 297 missions, lost 131 aircraft, 310 men killed or missing. But they'd completed their mission, destroyed factories, disrupted production, helped win the war. The cost was high, but they'd paid it. Men like Thacker, Murphy, Morrison, young men who climbed into aircraft every morning knowing they might not come back, who flew damaged bombers home through impossible circumstances, who refused to quit when physics said they should. That's the story of Memphis Belle II, and the day she came home with her tail nearly gone. A reminder that impossible is just a word. That determination matters more than aerodynamics. That sometimes, when everything is against you, you fly the airplane anyway and trust it to bring you home. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served in the 8th Air Force. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for making sure Robert Thacker and Memphis Belle II don't disappear into silence. These men and their aircraft deserve to be remembered. You're helping make that happen.